This anime is set in a post-apocalyptic world where human beings are constantly fighting to stay alive. There are so many enemies to face that even women have been forced to fight. Fortunately, men haven't gone extinct and always spring into action when necessary. The hero of this story is called Kanata, and together with his team of losers they are fighting a huge horde of enemies who keep sending reinforcements. At one point during the fight, the group's mage was almost devoured by a monster, but Kanata saved her, and soon afterwards he said that he would draw the attention of all the enemy and asked her to retreat with the rest of the group. She hesitates to do so, but in the end she trusts Kanata, and he stands alone against an insane amount of enemy. He continues to fight bravely, and with every second that passes, his chances of survival diminish, until out of nowhere a cloud is broken in half and a huge creature appears. At that moment, with a calm look on his face, he wonders if his friends have managed to escape safely. Meanwhile, the gigantic creature carries a green energy break and throws it towards Kanata, who just stares at the green light. Afterwards, we discover that the survivors of this world live on Flying Island, and Kanata observes the whole Flying Island from one of the highest parts of it. Meanwhile, the principal of an academy, a woman with short hair, is talking to Chloe about the most unsuccessful girls at the Mage Academy. The first useless one is a beautiful girl called Riko. She is part of the lowest class in the Sky Mage division. However, due to her squadron's poor performance, they have become known as the F-class squadron. However, the girl herself is unable to accept that she is a failure. In fact, she believes that all the people who have classified her as such are idiots. She actually believes she is a goddess and the heroine who will save the whole world. She is ordered by her superiors to apologize and make amends for her actions. However, she refuses to lower her head. The second failed girl is Lex. She's a cute girl who dreams of becoming someone strong enough to protect the floating cities by fighting the things she calls demonic beetles. However, she's afraid of fighting these creatures and gets cold feet just thinking of it. But even so, she wants to be able to protect people, believing that this is the true happiness she seeks. The girls were being put into a report, and according to the pretty woman with the short hair, Lect is a failure because the good ones like her are the first to die. Lect is a person who can't even get on public transport to get to school, and is always forced to go to the Sky Magician School on foot. And the last girl to be assessed is the squad leader of the lowest rank. Her name is Mizora, and she is in her first year at the Sky Mage Academy, and in her first semester of practical exam, she had 0 wins and 57 losses. And adding up all the practical exams she's taken, Mizora has a streak of 124 defeats, which the short-haired woman finds unacceptable, and she recommends that Mizora be asked to leave the school voluntarily. According to the short-haired woman, these 3 are clearly the most unsuccessful students the school has, so she believes that either these girls should be expelled or someone should instruct them so that they become useful. The short-haired woman says that it's the duty of the woman in front of her to expel these 3 girls, or to appoint an instructor who suits them well, and Chloe already has an idea of who she should put in charge of this. A while later, we see Kanata being approached by Lloyd, who asks his friend what he's doing. Kanata says that he's checking the stock of this warehouse because he realized that the list of food didn't match the one in the report, and after an investigation he discovered that some idiots from the Machina division were stealing food and gave them a good beating. Lloyd is shocked that Kanata has managed to check everything himself, saying that normally 10 people would take about 3 days to do all this counting, and Kanata, tired from having been without sleep, asks Lloyd what he wants with him, and in response Lloyd says that the leader of the Magician's division in the sky wants to see him in her office. After that, Kanata leaves the warehouse tired, catches a ride and calmly gets off the moving vehicle, wondering if he'll make it in time. Out of nowhere, his legendary power of luck activates and a girl falls on it. He calls the girl Flaccid and tells her to get off him, which she does, complaining that he called her flaccid. When she gets up, she realizes that her strawberry-filled toast has also been caught by Kanata's seductive power, and she demands that he apologize, but Kanata calls her an idiot, saying that she should be the one apologizing for having ridden on him like crazy and soiled his pants. The girl starts complaining endlessly. Then Kanata, tired of listening to an idiot teenager, gets up and the toast falls out of his pants. The idiot Misora sees this and starts screaming that there's a pervert in in front of her. However, when she tries to look at Kanata's privates again, he's already gone. He was now trying to wash his pants elsewhere, but the strawberry whale stain wouldn't come out. Out of nowhere, he looks ahead and notices a girl flirting in the mirror. The girl realizes that Kanata is standing behind her and turns around to ask if her beauty has impressed him, but he says that her idiotic behavior has really caught his attention. The girl quickly comes to the conclusion that she is a goddess and that Kanata is a stalker fascinated by her. He calls her strange, and the girl tells Kanata that she's beautiful and that it's normal to be fascinated by her beauty. She says all this as she gets closer to him, while asking him not to get too close to her, as he could end up falling madly in love with her. Kanata tells the girl that she should spend the time she's spending admiring her self-training, and she approaches him to the point where she notices that he's only wearing his underwear, and she complains about him taking his clothes off while he's watching her, but he says that he was standing there without his clothes on first. The girl feels ashamed and starts shouting that there's a pervert right in front of her, prompting Kanata to disappear again. Afterward, in the ladies' room, all the girls were commenting on the fact that a pervert had shown up at the gym. They were disgusted by such a person, and Kanata was getting angry because not once but twice he had been called a pervert. He was coming out of an empty restaurant until out of nowhere Alex appeared right in front of him. The embarrassed girl asked if he was the pervert, saying that this was a women's restroom, but Kanata denied it with all his might. A while later, Kanata walks past the main entrance to the gym in his wet pants. Two men stare at him, calling him a traitor who does nothing, while they put their lives at risk. He enters the gym, and as he climbs a flight of stairs, another person appears saying that as well as being a traitor, he's also late for his appointments. He asks the girl if she holds any grudges for what he did to her, but Chloe appears to calm the girl down, who was about to get into a mess with Kanata, and the girl says that she doesn't hold any grudges against this useless man. But then Kanata says that her belittling him only proves that she has a grudge against him. Annoyed, the girl called Yuri leaves, and Kanata tells Chloe that this girl just wanted to sit on his sword like crazy, but he refused, saying that he only likes older women. He says that Yuri has never been good at controlling her emotion, and that he understands why she holds a grudge against him. And Yuri calls him a traitor because 6 months ago, when that fight in which Kanata was left behind alone against several enemies, she lost consciousness and didn't see that Kanata is actually the hero who saved her and her friend's lives, and he doesn't seem to mind being called a traitor. But Chloe still feels guilty about it and offers him a good deal. Seeing her smiling like that, Kanata says that she must want to make trouble for him. That said, she takes Kanata to the short-haired woman, who says Kanata is a traitor with guts for appearing in front of her. But Kanata says he was forced to, and Chloe hits him. Soon afterward, the short-haired woman tasks him with becoming an instructor for the E601 squad, ordering him to make sure that these good-for-nothings succeed in fulfilling this town's objective, which is to create strong sky mages who can put an end to the threat of the demonic beetle. He asks why he has to teach, but Chloe says he's the only one who has the free time and inclination to do it. He asks Chloe what she means by that, and she compliments him by saying that he works hard when no one is looking, and also begins to cite his achievements. But he doesn't let her say much, and says that he's going to train these useless girls. He looks at their grades and is shocked at how useless they all are. Meanwhile, the three losers were talking and wanted Lek to reveal a secret she was hiding. So the girl opened her mouth and said that a hairy, muscular man had raped her body in the bathroom this morning. Meanwhile, Kanata was walking down the corridor of the gym, while all the girls were afraid to even go near the man who is called a traitor. He asked 3 random girls where the lowest ranking squad room is, and back in the room, the girls were commenting about being harassed by a pervert. Then, out of nowhere, Kanata enters the room, revealing that he has been selected to be their instructor. He introduces himself to the girl, and the girls recognize him as the famous traitor, and because they believe him to be a pervert, they pull out their magic weapons to wipe out his kind. After calming the girls down, he answers all their questions, and first Monsieur says that he mustn't even have read the data about them, and he starts telling them everything he knows about them. Monsieur being a 14-year-old girl, a virgin and the bearer of a failure so great that she has never managed to win a mock battle. What's more, all her grades are F, and the evaluators recommend that she leave school voluntarily and go and live another life. In response, she says that her true abilities can't be measured by these school tests, yet not even her squad partners trust her. Riku mocks her for being ugly and dumb, and then Kanata says that all of Riku's grades are negative because she has never taken a test or handed in a paper. She even managed to get a failing grade in a combat test, and Kanata asks how she got got those results. In response, Riku says that she takes too long to get ready, and that's why she doesn't have time for loser stuff. And lastly, he talks about Lek, who also gets terrible mark, but at least she tries hard. And in her fights, she loses most, but at least she has a few victories. The girl starts to shake and apologizes by banging her head on the table, which makes her cry out in pain. After showing that he knows the girls, Kanata wanted to start training, but Misura stood up and said she refused to take lessons from a traitor. Lek, like a good gossip, asks for more information, and Misura says that 6 months ago he fought against a large horde of beetles, after which he abandoned his group and stopped taking part in fights. The fact that he abandoned his group led to him being called a traitor by everyone, and Misura refuses to let a traitor like him become their instructor. In reply, Kanata says that at least he has never suffered defeat, unlike her who has only known defeat in her life, and he asks her if she isn't ashamed of it, and she says yes, but she insists that she tries hard and doesn't want to be a loser, and Riku stands up saying that she's a perfect goddess, only for Lek to stand up and say that she tries very hard. With his back to the girls, Kanata says that at their age he was called the Master of the Dark Sword. He tells the girls that if they follow his advice, they can be as strong as him or even surpass him. He asks the girls to imagine themselves becoming strong enough to defeat strong enemies. They imagine their own ideals, and so Misura and Lek accept Kanata. However, Riku refuses, saying that she's a goddess and that she can't sweat or even get tired. She tries to leave the room, but Kanata says that since she doesn't even try out or fight other people, he doesn't know how silly she is. Then he says that from now on he'll consider her as something worse than Misura. Riku feels insulted at being compared to that walking piece of shit, and Kanata says that she will be treated like something similar to Misura if she doesn't show her true ability. This angers Riku, who promises to show her talents at least once. However, she asks Kanata to wear a condom, as she's afraid he won't be able to stand even 10 seconds of seeing her incredible ability. Kanata asks Lek if she will accept him too, and she was too embarrassed to speak up, so Misura gave her the push she needed, and Lek revealed that she really wanted to take part in the training with him. Now that they've all agreed to train, he can put his training into practice. Meanwhile, on the other side of the screen, Kanata's two former teammates were talking, and Yuri was asking for the 6th time if Kanata was on medical leave, and in response Chloe said that unfortunately he is no longer able to go out fighting. However, he has now become the instructor of a squadron of the lowest rank. Yuri is surprised and says that she doesn't accept other girls being around Kanata, but Chloe asks Yuri not to speak badly of Kanata, as they owe their lives to him, and thinking about the training that Kanata must be giving the children, Chloe says that he probably started with aerial training. He was actually in the sky with a girl, and Misora was criticizing the fact that he was using equipment to fly instead of using his own magic. He says that this is because of the difference in skill between them, revealing that he could easily defeat them without using his magic. This angers Misora, but she holds in her anger and asks what kind of training they're going to do, and Kanata says that they're going to do a kind of pickup game, and the girls complain that this is something for beginners who have just learned to fly. However, Kanata says that they can use their weapons to attack with full force, and as soon as they manage to wipe out his race, the training is over. That said, he starts training, and Misora and Alex start following him, while Rico says that it's foolish to follow a target in the open without a plan. Kanata, while being followed by the screaming Misora, looks back and realizes that they really don't know how to work as a team, but at least he realizes that Misora is fast and has enough stamina to keep going using her own magic. Annoyed by Kanata's escape, Misora summons her sword, which is also a magic cannon, and tries to attack Kanata with physical blows, but he just dodges, saying that her weapon isn't meant to be used as a club. After seeing Misora's abilities, he is lost using the clouds and notices Alex behind him. He turns around, complimenting her on her weapon, and as she talks about her weapon, Kanata reflects to himself that Alex could have attacked him from behind, and he wouldn't even have noticed her. He asks Alex not to hesitate and to attack him as she wishes. The girl does so, showing herself to be quite skillful. However, as soon as her face is close to Kanata's, she feels ashamed and backs away. Her shame makes her act like a frightened idiot, which makes Kanata realize that he's never met such crazy girl. He asks what she's doing, and after pulling herself together, she attacks him again, and while she's attacking him, he realizes that Alex quite talented, but she doesn't trust her own ability, and also has some mental problems that need to be treated at a good psychologist. Out of nowhere, Rico prepares to hit him from a distance. He notices the blow and dodges it. However, he realizes that Alex was in the path of the bullet, so he was forced to use his power to cut through Riko's magic bullet. After doing so, he compliments Riko, saying that she really isn't as useless as Mizora, but she still has a lot of room for improvement. He says that her shot wasn't bad, but she forgot to hide her killing intent. He asks if their attack was combined, and they both say yes. Riko admits that Alex's moves are refined, so it was obvious that she would team up with her teammate to hit a good shot. Kanata then says that if everything was planned, Riko should have worried more about friendly fire. However, Riko says that she is a goddess and that mundane lives are not important to her. After this training session, Kanata finally gets to know the girls better and finishes training for the day. During the evening before the bath, the girls were talking about Kanata, and it was at this moment that Mizora realized that she is a loser even in her lack of body. They started to fight, and while the girls were fighting, Kanata was telling them each their problem. Mizora is hot-headed and only does shit. Alex has a problem with her self-esteem, and Riko is the exact opposite of the two, being really skilled, but she thinks she's too superior, and that leads to a lot of problems. However, he believes that training these idiots will be a fun challenge. He opens the girls' bathroom door, only to find them fighting, and he is shot by their magic weapon. The next day, in class, Kanata says that he's going to start special training for the girls. However, Riko herself says that she is perfect and doesn't need to take part in this useless training. She gets up and leaves the class, while Mizora calls her back, but Kanata tells Mizora to leave her alone and asks the two remaining girls if they really are ready for special training, and they say yes, while Kanata looks at them both with a lifeless stare. A while later, we see Alex dressed in a maid's outfit and in a fitting room. Kanata pulls the curtain of the fitting room tight, and when he sees her, he says she looks beautiful and asks what the problem is. She asks Kanata if they should spend the squadron's budget on this kind of thing, and he says that at the moment, it's what's necessary. He hands her a bag full of flyers and tells her that her training for today is to hand out flyers wearing this outfit. She almost cries, but Kanata says it's very necessary. Afterward, we see Alex trying to hand out the flyers, but she's so embarrassed that she can't hand them out, and the girls make fun of her. Alex almost cried, until out of nowhere 3 boys who were passing by spot something that fills their eyes with pleasure. It was obviously Alex trying to deliver the flyers in her maid outfit. The boys run towards her and, embarrassed, she falls to the ground. However, she remembers that she has to overcome her special training, so she gets up and asks them to take a flyer. One of the boys looks at the flyer and sees that it's a discount coupon, so they all get a piece of paper, and after thanking Alex, they go to the restaurant she's recommending for lunch, which makes Alex happy that she's managed to deliver her first flyer. Meanwhile, Kanata has ordered Miss Sora to find Riko's weakness, and she is shocked by his mission, but he says that everyone has their weaknesses, and that Riko may be trying to look good, but she may be hiding a great weakness, and Miss Sora says that she doesn't get on with Riko, but she still wouldn't be mean enough to do this to her. At that moment, Riko was passing by, so Kanata hugged Miss Sora to shut her up, because this loser never stops talking. Miss Sora struggles to try to speak, but Kanata is much stronger and won't let her. And finally, when Riko passes by, Kanata lets Miss Sora go, but only after letting her go did he realize that he was harassing her. However, in his defense, he says he didn't notice because she's too smooth, which annoys Miss Sora even more, who insists that they'll grow up one day, but Kanata ignores her and slaps her on the back to follow Riko, ordering her to discover her weakness. Miss Sora looks at Kanata with a dissatisfied face, but he just tells her to get on with her mission, after which Miss Sora sets out on her mission to follow Riko, but she is easily spotted. Riko says that Miss Sora didn't notice her reflection and reveals that she's going shopping. Miss Sora asks if she can tag along, but this question only makes Riko squeeze Miss Sora's cheek and ask why she's so interested in her day-to-day life. Miss Sora doesn't answer her, so Riko allows her to follow. Meanwhile, Kanata is having a cup of tea when Lex suddenly appears, and he asks her if she's finished delivering the flyer. She says yes, and that she was very nervous at first, but after delivering the first few flyers, he's got up the courage. When he hears this, Kanata tells her that she has passed the first stage and says that she should start the second part. He comments that this restaurant is looking for employees and recommends that she start working in this store. After saying this, he wishes her good luck and leaves, and Lex, her poor little self, almost starts crying, saying that she can't do it. At that moment, several people start talking to her, which makes her shout that she can't do that, but Kanata is already too far away. On the other side of the screen, we see a man studying beetles, until out of nowhere he bumps into Yurei, and she spills her drink on his genital. She apologizes for it and starts cleaning the man's reproductive organ. She spends about 5 minutes doing that, which results in the man falling in love with her. He sees her as a perfect girl. At this point, Yuri's friends arrive and the man says that everything is fine, and Yuri apologizes again, picks up her things that have fallen and leave, while Riku is buying a philosophy book, while Misora comments that this kind of thing seems boring to read. Riku then calls her dumb, saying that she doesn't understand the concept of understanding the truth of this world, and in response Misora uses 200% of her brain and says that she's still 14, so it's normal for her to be dumb. Riku leaves for the next door, this time showing her weakness, which may well be the fact that she goes crazy when she sees something very cute. She pretends to be a serious adult, while in fact she is still a 14-year-old girl. But Misora is too dumb and comes to the conclusion that liking cute things is not exactly a weakness. Meanwhile, on the other side of the screen, Lecty had managed to get a job and was trying to deal with some boys who were making fun of the fact that she was too scared. At first, Lecty can't stand it and ends up running away to a secluded corner. Lloyd, former partner from Kanata's group, sees this happen, but Misora shows up to talk to Lecty. Lecty tearfully hugs her and then asks how Misora's training went, but she just laughs and disguises, saying it was nice. Misora tells Lecty that she can ask for her help if she needs it, and Lecty is happy and actually asks for her help, making Misora wear a rabbit outfit, as it was the only one Kanata had apart from her maid outfit. Thanks to these two beautiful employees, all the boys with good taste gathered to place their orders, and Misora fulfilled them without hesitation. However, Lecty was still rather hesitant about dealing with these boys. At that moment, Lloyd asks for something to drink, and Lecty serves him, and when he notices her trembling, he realizes that she doesn't know how to deal with people, and that this must be her weakness. However, he tells Lecty not to worry and to trust her instructor. He also comments that Lecty has a great friend to help her, and that all she has to do is try to emulate her, and Misora at least acts maturely at work, as the boys only know how to joke by asking if the bunny is also on the menu. Lecty observes her for a few minutes and realizes that Misora is doing very well at her job, so she tries to thank Lloyd for his advice, but when she turns around, the man has already left to smoke a cigarette, and then a girl makes a request, and Lecty this time tries not to hesitate any longer and be like Misora. The two of them have been coping very well with the work, and the snack bar has been making more and more profit. The principal passes by and sees a crowd of boys and the two losers at work, so she says she can't wait to see what the traitor can do to them. After work, Misora takes Lecty to the Kanata and asks what kind of training that was. She asks Lecty to complain, but the girl just asks the Kanata how he found out that she has social phobia. He then comments on the martial art she was trained in, saying that she must have undergone very rigorous training and that she had her skills proven in order to be able to use the Inzenate family name. He says that at the catch the day before, if it hadn't been for her social phobia, he could have had a great fight with her. However, she was unable to show her true abilities due to her insecurity. She admits that she can never really do her best because of her insecurity, but the Khanate calms her down, saying that everyone has their faults and insecurities, and that the important thing is to recognize this and look for a better version of yourself. Lecty says she'll try harder, and Misora also compliments her, and in response, Lecty admits that she was only able to try harder because Misora was with her, and she's grateful for her friend's help. The Kanata then looks at Misora and asks how she went in her training, and she says she failed, but she found it strange that Riku liked book, clothes, and looked like a cute grotto when she saw a teddy bear. The Kanata then compliments her on how well she did, buys an ice cream, and gives it to the two girls while complimenting them on how well they did. However, Misora doesn't think she did well, as she never realized that Lecty had a social phobia, and she also didn't know anything about Riku, even though she was their squad leader. The Kanata says that this is something she needs to improve, so she says that she will continue to help Lecty. However, the Kanata says that today's training was for her to discover her shortcomings as a squad leader, and that her training will be totally different from that of the other girls. She gets angry and tries to punch the Kanata, which causes her ice cream to be thrown on the floor and the owner of the ice cream stand to cry. A while later, when the Kanata was in his room, out of nowhere an old friend bursts into his room. He complains that this is the men's dormitory, but she says he should be grateful to have a beautiful girl like her in his room. She looks at the monitor and realizes that the Kanata was thinking about what to do with the Misora. He says that this idiot has a lot of potential, but she wastes it all by being useless. Then, the next day, he reveals to the missive that because she is useless in combat, he wants her to switch to defense, so she will be more useful. However, she refuses with all her might. He asks her to stop being selfish, but the Misora stands up to him, saying saying that she doesn't intend to change, but the Khanate says that she doesn't have the capacity to evolve by carrying on the way she is, and this makes her start crying, saying that she was wrong to think he was a decent trainer, and ran out of the room. Right after that, we go back in time where we see several beetles coming to attack, and an adult woman eliminates several of them in a matter of seconds. She is an attacker who uses a sword, and when a giant beetle attacks her, she turns her sword into a cannon to counterattack, leaving everyone fascinated by the result. Even the Misora herself, who says that her mother is incredible. Time passes and we discover that her mother has died, which is why the Misora wants so much to be a striker with a sword to make her mother proud. After that, we see Late bringing Lloyd a coffee. He thanks her and returns to his meeting with the principal, and the grumpy woman asks if Late is still doing the same training, and Lloyd says that if she's blind she should look for a replacement for her job straight away. On her way back, Late meets Riko, and she asks her to help her train the Misora with her sword. Riko refuses, so Late says she'll have to turn to Kanata. Riko hears this and says that Late really seems to admire that traitor, and Late confirms that she does, while she talks wildly in praise of Kanata. Riko realized that Late had somewhat improved her social phobia. On the other side of the screen, that strange man from before was looking for an opportunity to thank Yuri for stroking his member, until out of nowhere he sees Yuri following Kanata, who seemed very uninterested in hearing what she had to say. Yuri complains that he hasn't trained his students for 3 days, and in response, Kanata asks what she has to do with it, and Yuri acts like a tsundere, saying that she's only worried about the girl, and after hearing this, Kanata turns his back on her, and before leaving, he thanks Yuri for worrying about his students, which makes Yuri blush. When the strange man sees Yuri interacting with Kanata, he doesn't react and even abandons the letter he was holding, dropping it on the floor. After that, Kanata goes to the cafeteria where the Misora work. He is greeted by a bald man who is the girl's father, at which point the Misora complains about Kanata's presence there, but her father tells the girl to respect his customer. Kanata looks at the Misora's father and comments that his daughter looks nothing like him. The man laughs and says that his daughter has taken after her mother. Kanata then sees the photo of the Misora's mother and says that she is a beautiful woman, and when he says this, the Misora's father becomes sad and says that this photo is all that remains of her. He serves the Kanata with grilled meat, saying it's on the house, and comments that it was his wife's favorite dish. He says that she was a mage who fought in the sky, but she died and he couldn't do anything for her. The Misora's father, realizing that Kanata is close to his daughter, asks why she missed 3 days of school, and Kanata reveals that he is her instructor, and that his duty is to teach her how to survive. So before revealing why the Misora has been missing, he asks the father of the cave why she is so attached to the sword, which is such a difficult weapon to use. The man then reveals to Kanata that his wife was a great, if not the best, user of the magic quick sword, and that must be why the Misora is so attached to this weapon. The man reveals that because he is a natural and doesn't fight, he has simply lost his memories of his wife, and only remembers her through images, and the Misora doesn't want to give up her post as a mage to avoid becoming a natural and losing her mother's memory. While they were talking, the Misora was training alone, telling herself that she would never forget her mother. After that, we went back to the past, where the Misora's mother treated her daughter very well, throwing her about 100 meters up in the air. The beetle's mother was always praised by all the townspeople, and something quite interesting about her is that she was good for nothing but fighting beetles, being a terrible housewife. After a few days, the Misora's mother received a call and left for work. Even though the Misora asked her to stay, she returned a few days later and took the missive to see the city. However, she wasn't allowed to use her powers to wander around, and ended up being chased by guard. The next day, she went out to work again, and time passed until, out of the blue, the Misora realized that her father no longer remembered her mother. She asked everyone in town, but no one remembered her mother. Then she asked some guard, and they told her that her mother died trying to protect them, facing many enemies on her own. Since then, she has vowed to become a sky mage just like her mother, and to protect everyone in the city just like her mother did. In the present day, after remembering all this, the Misora struggles, wondering why she can't get good at anything, until out of nowhere, she takes a parry from a construction iron, and is even sadder, having lost even to a lifeless object. However, when she thinks of her mother, she shouts that she won't give up. Just then, then, Kanata appeared. They go together to her mother's grave, where Kanata finds out all about her and asks her to give up using a sword. He says that her mother's goal was not to use a magic cannon sword, but to protect people. He says that if her mother was better using another type of equipment, she wouldn't hesitate and would use whatever was best, because her goal was to save people. He says that her stubbornness only increases her chances of dying, and if she dies, everyone in the town will lose all memories of her. However, she insists, saying that perhaps the fact that she uses this cannon sword like her mother used to will make people recover their memories of her mother. Kanata laughs it off, saying she's a complete nutter, but reveals that he likes people like her, so he decides to teach her how to use a cannon sword like her mother, as he has already checked her determination. However, he says that this path can be harder than death, and as Misura doesn't intend to give up, he makes Misura swear in front of her mother's grave that she won't give up, and when she does, Kanata tells her that from now on, he will bear half the responsibility for making her use a sword like her mother used to. After that, Misura finally goes back to training under Kanata, and Riku observes everything from afar and comments that Kanata is starting to become interested. The next day, we see the principal telling Riku that if she keeps sleeping, she'll be late again. And then Riku wakes up complaining and saying that this woman is very annoying. She gets up saying she's a goddess and picks up a stuffed duckling, after which she takes her bath. Meanwhile, Kanata is having breakfast with Lloyd, and everyone who arrives sits away from Kanata because he's a traitor. And Yuri shows up trying to mock Kanata, but he and Lloyd ignore her. They were talking about a little contest that was going to take place, and Yuri started saying that there was no way Kanata was going to win. However, he himself admitted that this is great, because his students can fight without anyone expecting them to do anything. Looking at Kanata's face, Yuri remembers some of the good times they shared together on the battlefield, and then she leaves, pretending to have something to do. Lloyd then says goodbye to Kanata and goes after Yuri to see if she's okay. As they leave, Riku appears, saying that Kanata eats a lot. He looks at her, and Riku has a great expression on her face. He asks what happened, and she says that during her bath, she saw the most beautiful thing in the world, which in this case was herself. Kanata laughs out loud at her, and it reminds her of when she used to get teased by children for saying she was a goddess. She looks at Kanata's research on the next enemies they will face, and Kanata says that they have a good chance of winning. However, Riku says she has no intention of training with him, and he easily accepts this, telling her to do whatever she wants. A few minutes later, while the girls were getting dressed, Kanata knocked on their bathroom door and asked if they had finished getting ready. They gasped and said no, and then he replied that he intended to present them with a gift if they showed the results of their battle training. Afterwards, the two girls try to convince Riku that she should train with. However, Riku refuses, saying that she doesn't need it, but they say with certainty that Kanata can help her improve. But Riku responds by saying that he's never really tried to train her, and also says that she has no interest in humiliating herself in a match that she knows she'll lose, so she doesn't want the two to rely on her for help. This angers Misora, and she tries to bow down to Riku and beg, but Kanata stops her. Meanwhile, on the other side of the screen, the director is asking how Kanata's squad is doing, and Chloe laughs, saying that she already asked the same question last week. And back to Kanata, well, he completely ignores Riku and her goddess syndrome and says he's going to hand over the key to victory to Misora. The next day, Riku wakes up frightened after a night. She goes to school late as usual. Meanwhile, Yuri was training, and that damn stranger was stalking her. The strange man was complaining about her closeness to that traitor, so he creates his own truth, saying that Kanata is deceiving Yuri's pure mind. Riku ends up seeing the man stalking someone, and she says that it's normal for people to stalk her because she's a goddess, but the man just runs off when he's discovered. Meanwhile, Kanata was showing Misora a skill she could learn to win any competition. He summons a sword and shows her a skill that makes Misora afraid she won't be able to perform it, but Kanata calmly teaches her how to use this skill, and on the first try she succeeds, but she feels her body getting exhausted quickly. And then she looks at Kanata and notices that he is also panting, and she finds this quite strange, as he is supposed to be one of the elite of the Sky Mage. Kanata tells her that from now on, her training will be to make these shots and master them. as this is their trump card for victory, and because she has understood the lesson of the day, he pats her on the head more, and she starts to get angry, saying that her head is no support. Meanwhile, Riku was watching from a distance, wondering if it was normal for him to flirt so much with the girls during training. He then trains with Lecty, and she seems to have improved to the point of making Kanata sweat. He praises her improvement and says that it was possible because she can now face the best head-on. After complimenting her and saying that she's done well, he strokes her head, which makes Riku even more surprised that they're so happy together. She wonders if she too is capable of evolving like the other two girls, but she calls herself a fool and goes back to watching. However, Kanata was no longer in the sky, but behind her. He notices that she is wearing pink glasses and asks if that is what she uses to activate her clear evidence. She says yes, but then asks how he knows about her ability. In response, he praises her ability and asks her how she would observe them from that distance if she didn't have it, leaving her speechless. She then says that even if Mizora completely masters that skill, she won't have time to use it. And in response, Kanata says that Riku's wide range of detection and defense skills will be the key to victory. She will be responsible for giving Mizora time to use her ability. Riku then asks if Mizora isn't the key to victory, but Kanata tells her that all three are the key to victory. She then asks why he never tried to train her, and he says that he was hoping that Mizora and Elect would reach the same level as her, because Riku really does have divine ability, and because of this, he asks Riku to help them, because he needs her, and so do the girls. He says that it's up to Riku to decide whether they'll all be called losers for the rest of their lives, or whether they'll shut everyone up. Riku hesitates a little, but then, the next day, she shows up early for practice, which makes Kanata happy to see that the key to victory has finally been formed. However, when their day to compete arrived, and their enemies were already happy to face the group of underachievers, an invasion of demonic beetles began. The invasion alert has been announced, and all normal students and non-combatants are ordered to head for the nearest shelter. The principal at her command post orders 7 rank A squads to be sent to the battlefield, and orders the lowest ranked squads to be sent to help with the evacuation. Kanata and the girls go to help with the evacuation, until Riku starts asking Kanata why he isn't fighting on the front line, and he says that his case is complicated. Out of nowhere, Lex arrives carrying a child she found. Just then, Kanata looks up at the sky and sees her old group fighting, until Lloyd arrives and tells her that other beetles are invading the city of Mitsugan, and the principal receives a report of the invasion. She orders the students and even those helping with the evacuation to prepare for combat, saying that their duty is to stop the insects from destroying the city. At that moment, several insects advance towards Kanata's group, but the missile remembers her promise to protect everyone and summons her weapon, missing one shot but hitting the neck. She then uses the explosion that Kanata taught her, eliminating all the insects in the area, but destroying the entire city in the process, which leads Kanata to say that it's not his fault. Everyone complains about her decision and criticizes her harshly, but she says it was a coincidence, and in response Kanata says that she destroyed her own father's restaurant. In the control room, the principal receives information that around 10,000 monsters have already invaded the city, and that 30% of the mages have been killed, and the principal comes to the conclusion that she will have no chance of victory if she doesn't kill the boss of all the smaller monsters. On the other side of the screen, Kanata and his group manage to get the little girl to her mother. However, the situation only gets worse, and an alarm indicating even greater danger sound. And on the principal's side, we see that a monster called Chimera is in block 24. And on hearing this, the principal orders the containment units to be sent. She says that if Chimera is taken down, its little followers will leave. And after receiving the order, they all advance towards Chimera and manage to eliminate. So the principal orders the students to eliminate the rest of the enemy. But she receives the news that even after the Chimera has been defeated, the enemies haven't changed their behavior pattern. While this was going on, Kanata was explaining to the girls that when the number of enemies is this large, it's normal for there to be more Chimeras, and Riku quickly comes to the conclusion that they must find the other Chimera to protect this place. With no choice, Riku puts on her watch and uses her power of clear evidence, while Kanata compliments her, saying that she looks beautiful in glasses, and after using her power, she says that the Chimera must be in block 68. Meanwhile, Kanata's old group were fighting on the front line, and even though Kanata was a traitor, Chloe and Lloyd were completely sure that Kanata would save the city since they are on the front line and can't help inside. Back at Kanata's, he encourages the 3 girls to fight to save the city, as he's sure they're already strong enough to do so. One by one, they all agree to fight. Kanata acts as their leader and orders Late to be their front line, which works out very well, so she doesn't have any kind of social phobia when it comes to facing them. And the second second step is for Riku to cover Mizora with shots from the shortest distance, so that Mizora uses her great energy to destroy a large number of enemies. They follow Kanata's orders and keep up this pace until, out of nowhere, a powerful energy beam is sent in Mizora's direction, and Kanata defends her. The one who fired the shot was a gigantic chimera that the girls had never seen before. The creature easily defeats the girls, and one of the girls who was still standing asks Kanata what he intends to do, as she has noticed that he has a low mana level. Kanata says that he will set the worst example as an instructor, and he summons his weapon and coats his body in dense mana to then advance towards this enemy. He is very fast and manages to reach the enemy in a matter of seconds, but after delivering the first blow, he feels his body getting weak and realizes that he needs to put an end to it quickly. He uses the same technique he taught Mizora, destroying the creature and taking everything in its path with it. However, after saving the city, he ran out of energy and fainted, and his students rushed to save him. On the front line, Kanata's old group noticed the gigantic explosion, and Yuri asked what happened there, whereupon they said that the man she loves must have solved the problem on that side. Soon after, near where Kanata was, that strange stalker was running to see Yuri, until out of nowhere, a creature's eye fell next to him. The scene cuts and we see Kanata waking up. He looks at the clear sky without any creatures and tells the girls that they are more than ready to win the ranked match. After that, some time passes, and on the day of Kanata's students' ranked match, Yuri shows up in a good mood and asks Kanata how he got hurt, and he says that he tripped while running away like a scared girl. Yuri pretends to believe her, and then Kanata's students' ranked match begins, and they end up losing, which leaves Kanata speechless, and Yuri says she expected it. However, after seeing them lose, the principal decides to create yet another tournament, a tournament that will reward the winner very generously, the principal's aim being to motivate her students to become stronger. Afterward, we see Miss Hura training and battling balloons. She asks for Riko's help, but Riko focuses on admiring herself in the reflection of her gun. Late also remains useless, afraid of the sound of the balloons burst. After the whole debacle, we see the principal talking to Kanata's old group. She asks if they took care of the big chimera in the city, and they say no. However, the principal says that Kanata reported that her students had defeated the enemy, and asked not to be held responsible for the damage to the city. However, the principal refused to believe anything he said, and revealed that she was thinking of separating Kanata's squad, as they keep extending their losing streak. Meanwhile, Kanata was planning to continue training the girls, moving on to the next stage. Little did he know, however, that the principal was planning to relieve him of being the girls' instructor. Afterwards, in the classroom, the girls complained that their squad hadn't been recognized, and the Mizora started talking about the power Kanata had used, but he silenced her, and when the other girls ask him if he's satisfied with that, Kanata reveals that he has no interest in being recognized. He says he has something more fun to look forward to, and shows the girls a flyer for the Mitsugan tournament, in which all but the S-ranked squads can take part. The winner gets a free pass to do anything at school. The winner will also receive the best quality weapons, and, of course, the pride of victory. Each of the girls begins to imagine what their lives would be like if they won this tournament, and Kanata asks them what they're going to do. The girls say they don't know if they can win, but they still want to try. After that, Kanata goes to the principal to see what she wants, and she tells him that she wants to break up his group because Kanata has only led the girls to defeat. In response, Kanata refuses to do that and promises to show the girls progress in the tournament that the principal has created, but he insists, saying that he trusts his student. The girls were trying to overhear the conversation, but Kanata opened the door, after which they wondered if their group was really going to be separated. Inside the room, he explains everything to them and says that he is willing to fight for them to remain a squad. After that, we see the principal taking Kanata's old squad to a special research base for demonic beetles. There we discover that Stalker is a scientist researching the beetles, and he tries to shake the principal's hand, but she smells rotten fish on his hand and refuses. Stalker gets excited talking to Yuri and tries to return her scarf, but the principal interrupts him and asks him to show her the experiment. He then shows her the eye of a chimera with a sinister smile. She has incredible powers of regeneration that could help advance science. But that doesn't interest the principal. Stalker tries to talk to Yuri, asking if she likes men who are stronger than her, and Chloe says yes in an arrogant way so that the man will stop being inconvenient. As they left the lab, the director explained to them that the chimeras are evolving, and if things continue as they are, humanity will be exterminated. And it was with this in mind that she created the Mitsugan tournament. Before leaving, the director asks Yuri to do something, but it's not shown. The next day, we see the girls starting to draw their games, and Mitsura does the best in the draw, but as she's terrible at everything, I thought she was going to get some tricky enemies. But luckily, she got lucky and fell against a low-ranked team like them. Just then, Kanata appeared, and Yuri comes up behind him, only to tell him that her ranked squad will be taking part in the tournament. And in response, Kanata said that they would end up meeting in the final. He also said that his girls would beat her, and Yuri was shocked by this statement, and responded by saying that her squad would never lose to losers trained by a traitor. After that, during the night, we see a student running from a hooded person. The student shouts out asking who this person is, but it's too late, and something happens to him. The scene then cuts to the past, when Kanata was still a novice. Yuri was watching him in a tournament, and she thought he would lose, as his enemies were a rank, and he was only D rank. However, he was doing very well, until out of the blue, Yuri, who was only a novice at the time, almost got caught in the crossfire. But Kanata didn't let that happen, and then returned to the battle and beat her. When it was all over, he came back to her and asked her to work hard and become strong enough to help other people, and that's how Yuri ended up falling in love with Kanata. Back in the present day, Kanata's old squad is searching for information about the hooded man who has been attacking the student. Yuri was a little lost in her thought, until Kanata showed up, and she got angry again, which made everyone laugh and comment that they love it when she's like this. Annoyed, she goes off to instruct her squad, and Kanata comments that Yuri probably became the instructor of a squad of losers so that she could have a fair fight against him. He praises Yuri behind her back, saying that she is an honorable and responsible girl. And a while after the girls' training, Kanata decides to change their formation, and the Emissora doesn't think this is a good idea, but the other girls agree with Kanata and say they will do it. At training time, they try out Kanata's idea, and they do very well, until out of nowhere, Yuri and her group come flying towards Kanata. The group instructed by Yuri is very well trained, they act as a team, and at the end of the battle, they celebrate their victory together. However, even though Yuri's group is very strong and works very well as a team, Kanata motivates his students, saying that he will train them so that they can defeat even a group like that. Afterwards, in the classroom, Kanata gets Riko to make some strange sound, but he was just massaging her back. While doing that, he compliments Riko and says that she is able to observe the girls and give good tips, which is exactly why he considers her a good woman. In response, Riko says that stating the obvious won't make her fall in love with him. After his lessons, Kanata ended up being approached by Yuri, and she invited him to talk, and he accepted, saying that he already wanted to talk to her. They went together to a shopping mall, where Kanata ordered a coffee for himself, and Yuri did the same. While they were talking, Kanata's students were sneezing at them, until out of nowhere the three idiots came to the conclusion that Kanata and Yuri were dating, which made the Misora very depressed. During his conversation with Yuri, Kanata asks her about the information she released in the magazine, saying that she only likes people who are stronger than her. Kanata says that releasing that kind of information to people is complicated, and then with a perverted look on his face, he asks if the person Yuri loves is Chloe. Yuri is speechless, and Kanata tells her that she could have spoken earlier because he's not prejudiced, and says that there's even a gay bird. This annoys Yuri, who gets straight to the point, saying that she wants Kanata to stop being a useless instructor and go back to fighting in heaven because he's very skilled. In response, Kanata says that he and Chloe were once as useless as those girls, but they've evolved to become strong and popular. He says those girls have potential, and Yuri decides to leave. He says he'll pay the bill, but Yuri refuses, so Kanata says he'll pay the bill for the people at the table behind him. Afterwards, in the principal's office, Chloe and Lloyd inform the principal that the night thief has only been attacking students, and that with each attack he goes after a stronger student. On the other side of the screen, we see that the man with the night attacks is the scientist in love with Yuri. He attacks yet another victim, and says that he will soon be strong enough for Yuri to like him. The next day, Lex goes for an early walk and runs into Kanata. She asks to talk for a while without running, and tells Kanata that she finds it strange that he's putting them to fight in each other's position. She says she's only good at hand to hand, so she doesn't see the point point in taking a back seat. He tells Lex that she has noticed something very good, but that she hasn't yet realized the real reason for this training. And as Lex was still very embarrassed while talking to him, he put her to work again in a restaurant, this time at lunchtime, where she could easily fail due to the crowding, but she managed to observe the girls working and tried to follow their model. After that, at training time, they all continued practicing with their positions reversed, and while Rico and Monsieur were fighting, Lex finally understood that the purpose of this training is to make the three girls understand more about each other's position so that they can coordinate their actions better. Understanding this, Lex starts giving Monsieur tips and also praises her for being able to work well on the front line with such a heavy weapon, and Lex says that she would never be able to do the same, and she also praises Rico. Lex realizes her role in the rear and protects the girl's back. Kanata then compliments Lex and says that she passed the test. Afterwards, Kanata accidentally runs into Chloe, and he quickly realizes that his friend has wetness. She says it's because of the night attack, and Kanata asks for more information about this case. However, out of the blue, Monsieur appears, saying she's afraid she won't progress at the same pace as her friend, and asks Kanata to help her. He agrees and asks her to find her later. When Monsieur leaves, Chloe says that he must be enjoying being an instructor and reminds him of the time he trained Yuri. After that, Kanata forces his students to move house, forcing them all to make a certain apartment into a habitable place. When he leaves, Riku also leaves, saying that a goddess doesn't work with cleaning, and the girls go after her to force her to help them. Meanwhile, Kanata brings Yuri a sweet bread and invites her over for a chat. He comments on her using a sword instead of a spear, which suits her much better. He sees it as a tantrum on her part because he left their group. However, Yuri asks why a traitor like him would care about her, and Kanata says it's because she's his treasure. Just as he says this, that damn stalker appears in front of both of them. He's already defeated enemies of all rank, and now all that's missing is someone of the S rank. On seeing him, Kanata tells Yuri to choose better of her friends, but she says she thought this stranger was a friend of his, realizing that he's the person who's been attacking the students at night. She tries to fight him, but the fact that she's wearing a sword makes her weaker. Even so, she focuses on the enemy's movements and manages to knock the sword out of his hand. However, he uses wind magic to cut her. In the end, when he was going to kill the girl to show his love, Kanata stopped him. Stalker tries to attack him with wind magic, but Kanata easily fends off all his attack, no matter how fast he is. He tells his enemy that no matter how strong he is, he's just an amateur, and knowing that he can't defeat Kanata, the damned stalker decides to retreat, but only after he punches Yuri hard in the stomach and makes her pass out. Arriving at his laboratory, the eye of the creature that the scientist had caught communicated with him, telling him to use it so that his dream would come true. A while later, Yuri woke up naked, and when he got up, Kanata saw his body, so Yuri tried to kill him, but he told her that his students had undressed her because they didn't want her resting in bed in those bloody clothes. Yuri asked if he'd seen her without clothes on, and he ran out of the room. After putting some clothes on, Yuri thanked the girls, and they thanked her back, saying that Kanata informed them that Yuri protected him from a strange man who tried to attack him. And while they were talking about the crazy things Kanata makes them do, and asking Yuri what kind of things he also forces her to do, Kanata returned and even brought Yuri a present, telling her not to forget everything he taught her. She's embarrassed, and Mizora is jealous, and decides to ask Kanata what his goal is by making them live together in the apartment. Kanata doesn't answer her and starts caressing Mizora's head. Yuri sees this and remembers the good times she had with Kanata. Then she returns to her annoying girl posture and says that she will destroy them in the tournament. After that, the girls are afraid of losing and having their squad disbanded, but Rico changes the subject by saying she's hungry, and they all start cooking and interacting together, getting to know each other better. The next day, they train normally and continue to live together, and Mizora, watching Rico and Lek, realizes how useless she is. She tries to improve by studying with Rico and trying to cook with Lek, after which Mizora fails even more, destroying their shower heater and failing to learn any leadership tactic, which makes her cry in the shower. And the next day, the girls move on to their first battle, yet no one is there to watch but Kanata. Her enemies are happy, saying that they can now celebrate their victory because their enemies are the weakest girl. As soon as the match begins, begins, Misora tries to show that she is useful by attacking her enemies recklessly, but this only leads to her being easily defeated, as her duty is to stay in the background. Riko and Lek join the fight, while Misora finally realizes her mistake, which is not being weak, but not working as a team. She then takes the opportunity of her friends perfectly holding off the 3 enemies on their own and starts to load a powerful shot, just like Kanata taught her. She fires the shot and her enemies are hit full on. Kanata is happy that Misora has realized her role in the team, and the match is finally over, with the girls having the first victory of their lives. Meanwhile, Stalker was developing his plot more and more. With that, I left over from a chimera. After that, as the matches went by, Kanata's squad won more and more matches, and even though the principal wanted the girls to lose, they kept winning. The principal says that their victory is down to luck, but the girls end up getting a place in the semi-finals, and Yuri, with the intention of making Kanata keep his promise, makes all the newspapers report that Squad 601 will be split up if they don't win the next battle. So during the night, the girls got together. Now they were too good as a group to train on their own. Kanata was watching them from the sideline, completely satisfied with their progress. The next day, the girls went into battle, and this time the arena was full, and there were even cameras filming the tournament for the whole population, and their enemies are Yuri's squad. When they enter, everyone comments and shouts that they will be the winner. So when the battle begins, Yuri's squad quickly attack, forcing Kanata's girls onto the defense. However, the fight was evenly matched, because even though the enemy team's teamwork was very good, the girls had now evolved to the point where they were able to support each other during the battle. While the fight was going on, the director had a smile on her face, believing that Kanata's squad was finally going to be defeated, and it was clear that she had something personal against this squad. Outside the arena, Chloe and Lloyd were on guard, but Chloe didn't believe the enemy would attack. With most of the Sky Mages gathered here, back in the fight, Misora realizes that she doesn't have the skill to go head-to-head with her enemy, so she retreats by making random moves, making it difficult for her enemy to predict what she intends to do. Misora also insults her enemy, saying that she is bad at aiming. At that moment, Riko tries a combined surprise attack with Misora, but her enemies have been trained to avoid such surprise attack. Then Yuki stands up and tells her students to win this fight right away. The girl called Lily puts pressure on Misora, but just as Misora is gaining ground, she prepares to attack, and her enemies are lined up to be eliminated. But Misora doesn't fire but tries to eliminate Lily with a blow, but she misses. Misora then continues to flee without having fired the shot she had loaded, and her enemy continues to follow, until Misora repeats the same movement as before, with all the enemies lined up. But this time she fires, because Lily hesitated to warn her companions of the attack. So the battle is over, and the principal is filled with rage, and the only reason the 3 enemies didn't die was because of a protective field shielding the combatant. The winner was about to be announced, but out of nowhere the narrator was knocked out, and an invasion alert was activated. However, there was no beetle invading, and it was all just Stalker's plan to show his strength to Yuri. After his plan is put into practice, he slowly descends towards Yuri, and Misora realizes that he has a similar power to Kanata. He advances towards Yuri, but Kanata stops him and tries to run away with Yuri, but the damned Stalker won't let him. So Kanata takes up the battle against him and asks Yuri to back off, but the Stalker manages to wound Kanata's foot and prevent Yuri from running away. She tries to attack him, but he holds his sword and breaks, and just as he was about to go for her, he is hit by a shot from Misora. Any normal human would have died from this, but Stalker survived and was filled with rage. Soon after, Chloe and Lloyd appeared from the sky to attack Stalker, but he survived and turned into a One-Punch Man extra, who could easily be hit by a Saitama punch. He creates a wind barrier that prevents Kanata's friends from attacking him, and then grabs Yuri, saying he's going to make love to her. Disgusting. But before he does, he knocks down Kanata's students, forcing Kanata himself to use his power, which, when activated, heals the wound on his foot. Kanata attacks Stalker, and on being wounded by his blow, Stalker understands that he too has been chosen by the beetle, but in response Kanata says that he feels sorry for the man who was manipulated by those voices. Stalker, seeing Kanata's power, finally understands why he has become what everyone calls a traitor, saying that Kanata is just afraid to show his chosen power to everyone. In response, Kanata tried to attack him, but Stalker managed to immobilize him, and just as he was about to defeat him, Kanata's students came to his aid. Just then, Kanata manages to save Yuri, but when she tries to run away, way, Stalker attacks her, and Kanata steps in front of the blow to protect her. He falls to the ground, and the enemy starts laughing, and realizing that Kanata was still alive, Stalker prepares to kill him, but the girls do their best to try and save Kanata. However, their weapon isn't good enough to penetrate the carcass of this thing. The enemy underestimates it, and they now enlist Yuri's help to defeat it. He believes he is much more powerful, so he lets himself be hit by her. However, her spear has a high-frequency oscillator power and cuts through matter on a molecular level, and she only uses this weapon to fight Chimera. However, he asked for it. She forces Stalker to regress in his power, and he starts crying, pretending that he will regret it, but he transforms again and tries to attack Kanata. However, Yuri pierces him in the back and puts Stalker to sleep. A while later, when the principal shows up asking what happened, Kanata runs off, saying he needs to rest. The principal, despite the girls' victory, decided not to promote them to rank C and only forgave their debt for destroying the city. In the end, they won, but they got nothing more than the trophy and the assurance that their squad will no longer be separated. And finally, Yuri became a new member of their squad because she had bet on it with Kanata, and since she lost, she will now be his student again. Yuri had brought a cake with her, and Kanata opened it in front of all the girls, revealing a cake with a message of love for him. But Kanata didn't understand anything, and asked Yuri which of her students she loved, still believing that she liked women, and Yuri, very angry about this, left. The damned Stalker lived on, and everyone went on with their lives as happy sky wizards, until the next disaster struck. That's the end of this anime.